Here we go.
Case number 14780, the murder of Mr. William DeVictum. The scene of the crime, the mansion of Mr. William DeVictum. Here are the facts of the case as we know it. Mr. DeVictum was killed quickly under the cover of darkness during a dinner party. 5 guests were present at the event. All of these guests had some connection to Mr. DeVictum, either personal or professional. A lock of hair that is dark in color and a bloody butter knife are the only pieces of physical evidence. No fingerprints were found on the knife. The coroner noted in her report that the location of the wounds indicate that the perpetrator may have had some sort of previous medical training. First, the deceased, Mr. William DeVictum. Mr. DeVictum was the CEO of DV Enterprises and was in failing health. All of the guests for the evening assumed that he was going to reveal to whom he was leaving the company. The company is worth nearly $2 billion and is expected to grow considerably over the next 5 years. It doesn't appear that there are any specific threats to his life before this evening, although each of the guests had experienced prior arguments with Mr. DeVictum. Suspect number 1, Molly Daggers. Molly Daggers was the deceased nurse for the past 5.5 years. She lives in his home and has done so since she began this position. She is incredibly distraught over the death and has wept uncontrollably at times. Ms. Daggers monitored Mr. DeVictum's diet and medications on a daily basis. She routinely provided his baths and lifted him out of bed each day. She was a personal confidant and friend to the victim and is named in his will. She has more than $40,000 in student loan debt and has nearly maxed out all of her credit cards. Mr. DeVictum was paying her only $25,000 a year for her services, less than 1/4 of what she could be making in a hospital. Suspect number 2, Jose Criminale. Jose Criminale has been a member of the board of directors at DV Enterprises, the deceased company, for nearly 10 years. Mr. Criminale is unemotional about the death of Mr. DeVictum and said, quote, "It's about time. Now the company can move forward," unquote. Mr. Criminale was convicted of embezzling funds from another company in 2001 and served 9 months in a federal prison. Many other members of the board indicated that Mr. Criminale wanted to take over as CEO and move the company in a new direction. It was widely believed that Mr. Criminale would be the successor to Mr. DeVictum, which would nearly double Mr. Criminale's current salary and benefits with the company. Suspect number 3, Angie Has No Heart. Angie Has No Heart is the niece of Mr. DeVictum and his only living relative. She stands to inherit nearly $500 million, as well as 25% of the company. She has never been close to her uncle, and there are numerous newspaper articles and television reports about their tumultuous relationship. She has asked for the death certificate 3 times in the past 24 hours. Mr. DeVictum halted her monthly allowance a month ago, citing her recent addiction to pain medication following a serious back injury. Ms. Has No Heart is currently on probation for assault with a deadly weapon. Suspect number 4, Andrew Mean. Andrew Mean is the personal attorney for Mr. DeVictum. They had monthly meetings. He has been incredibly emotional over the death and continues to sob uncontrollably. Mr. DeVictum called Mr. Mean the evening before and requested that he bring Mr. DeVictum's last will and testament, as well as power of attorney paperwork. Mr. Mean asked why this sudden request was necessary but was given no answer. Mr. Mean previously insisted on security for Mr. DeVictum. Mr. Mean is also listed in the deceased's will and stands to receive a majority stake in the company. It appears that Mr. Mean had a father-son type relationship with the victim, and they have no history of quarrels. Suspect number 5, Jane DeSnake. Jane DeSnake has been Mr. DeVictum's personal assistant for 45 years, and she saw him on a daily basis. She is somewhat emotional over his death, but not as much as might be expected for a relationship of that length. She became upset when describing their work during nearly 5 decades together. Mr. DeVictum was demanding and often called Ms. DeSnake at all hours of the evening, on weekends, and even on holidays. His requests ranged from delivering documents to picking up dry cleaning to delivering dinner. Ms. DeSnake never married or had children, and she gave up her nursing career because she devoted her entire life to the deceased. Her bitterness about this is evident. When she was informed that there was no money in the will for her, she flatly said, quote, "I'm glad he's dead," end quote. Ms. DeSnake called an attorney immediately after our interview. Did you record all of the information you need to continue your investigation? Remember that you can view this video again to make sure you...
All right, guys, I'm going to go over this worksheet with you. We're going to type in everything we gathered together. There was a paper. We're going to go, like I said, we're going to go over it together. All you're doing right now is kind of recording notes on your end, and then as detectives, we're going to talk about it to see if we can narrow down who murdered Mr. DeVictim. So your paper should look like this. Your paper should look like this, and we're going to write down our information that we know so that we can talk about who we think murdered Mr. DeVictim. So our background knowledge right now is that they found dark hair at the crime.
Miss Burley,
Yes?
am I supposed to be in this meeting?
It's, I don't know who's talking, love.
Because she's probably like this forensic.
I don't know who's talking.
Um,
Oh, yes, baby, these are all, this is for science. This is not for forensics.
Miss Burley,
Yes, baby?
I can't find the paper. Like,
This is,
I
this,
looked
you were asked to write this down on a separate sheet of paper. I didn't give this to you guys.
okay.
So we know that we found dark hair. We think that the person, the culprit has medical training. What else did we find out? Somebody tell me.
There was a bloody butter knife.
There was a bloody butter knife.
He was killed quickly.
And he was killed quickly.
And there was
no
no
fingerprints.
Yeah, there was no fingerprints found.
And there
No
was 5
fingerprints.
people present during the murder.
Okay.
And
What do we know about Mr. DeVictim himself?
Well, he's famous.
He's famous.
He's a billionaire, like very, very rich.
Yeah.
He was the CEO of like
CEO of
company.
TV.
Okay, so he was a CEO. He was very, very rich. What about his health?
He had
It was bad.
Failing health. And we also knew that the company was worth over $2 billion, right?
If you give me $1 million, I'll be happy.
All right, what about Molly Daggers? What color hair did Molly Daggers have?
Brownish.
Miss Burley,
Red, brown hair?
Brownish hair.
Miss Burley,
He was working
at
could you please slow down?
I'm gonna leave this up for everybody to copy at the end. So don't worry, I will definitely slow down for you guys. What else do we know about Molly Daggers?
She was a nurse for 5.5 years. She worked there.
Nurse?
Bloody butter knife. Oh.
What do we know about, did she have any financial motive to kill Mr. DeVictim?
She did.
Yeah. She was in debt.
She had a lot of debt, right?
Yeah.
And she was also named in his will.
She also lives with him.
And she lives with him. We also know that she can lift him. She can lift him out of bed. And again, I know I may be going fast, but I promise I will actually share this document with you guys on my screen. And then what I'm going to try to do is get us into breakout rooms so we can talk about who we think did it. So I'll leave this up for you guys to see. Normally I would do this lesson in class a little bit differently, but we got to improvise, adapt, and overcome. So Jose Criminale. Somebody tell me what we know about him. Let me see. Tell me what we know about him, Berkeley.
What?
What do we know about Jose Denali, give me no.
I didn't write
He'll
that
probably
down.
be the CEO. the
Okay,
next
he
CEO.
wanted to be the CEO, right?
Yeah.
We know
He was a member director, I think it was.
on the board of directors.
It'll show you if you
Was it him who wanted to be the CEO?
and if you do have
Yeah, he wanted to be the CEO.
He got
Hold
double
on.
his money.
So what you're gonna do
What did you say, Love?
is
He got double his money.
one that I
Would have gained a lot of money.
Yeah.
This here
Um,
is your
he's not on mute, and it's hard for
When you run
me
it,
to
this is
kind
what
of
it looks like.
concentrate. Can somebody
We're gonna show
turn,
you how to do
whoever
this.
has somebody
You
talking
just
in the
download it
background?
into Excel, and this is what it looks like.
Can I have, Kaylee, do you remember what color hair Jose had?
Black or brown?
Yeah, it was like short, dark hair.
Yeah.
And we know that he had a criminal history.
Suspect.
Wasn't he like bald? Like
Yeah, he was like short, dark hair, but slash kind of bald. He was like missing hair up at the top. And he was unemotional about the death, meaning that he wasn't very upset about it.
He's suspect. Very suspect.
Yeah, definitely. But there's a reason we're taking all these notes, and I promise it relates back to science. Just bear with me. What about Angie has no heart? Let me call on Sonia. What do we know about?
Oh, I just got it.
Angie?
His last.
He has like brown, darkish hair.
Yeah, dark hair, and it was short, right? Or she had, no, she was long. Sorry, she had dark hair.
she was his niece.
She was his niece. Perfect. Did she stand to gain anything from Mr. DeVictim's death?
Oh, she wanted his death report.
Yeah.
The death
She did.
certificate?
Didn't it say something about guns and weapons or something like that?
He was
Yeah,
on
she
probation.
was
Gained
correct.
25% of his
He was on
company.
probation. And I think she also got some money from him too.
Yeah.
She was addicted to her pain medication.
She had an addiction. So we know that she had dark hair. She wanted his death certificate because she would have gained 25% of the company and money. And oh, it says addiction. I meant addiction.
Miss Burley,
Yes.
didn't she have something about like her back?
Yes, she was addicted to pain medication. And so she has a back problem, which means she could not lift. She wouldn't be able to lift the victim because her back was hurting. So that's important to know. Do you have any other knowledge about her?
It's not her. It's obvious.
All right, let's go to Andrew Mean. And again, I'll share this with you guys when we're done so you can see it. Andrew Mean had dark, short hair. What else do we know about him?
He was the attorney. Wasn't he the attorney?
One person at a time. He was an attorney. Xavier, is there anything else that we missed?
He had a father-son relationship.
They had a father-son relationship.
He was very emotional.
Very emotional. Very good. You guys are picking up a lot.
They had a monthly meeting like every day.
Yeah.
So he met with the victim a lot.
Miss Burley, wasn't
Miss Burley, what does attorney
Hold
mean?
on, one at a time, guys.
wasn't
Lucas,
his hair?
his hair was dark and short.
I thought it was like orange in the picture. Never mind.
Miss
Oh,
Burley,
was
what does
that
attorney mean?
Attorney means lawyer. So he was his lawyer.
Oh.
And he also asked, he would have gained a lot of money in the will, right? So he would have gained, I can't type today, gained money, and he asked the victim to revise his will. And again, I know that you may not copy all this down because it's a lot, but I will share it with you guys, so don't worry. Jane the snake, what color was hair?
She had short gray hair.
Short gray hair.
She was an assist for Mr. Williams.
She was an assistant.
She was an assistant for 45 years, actually. Yeah.
Was she happy that he was dead, or was she very sad?
She's quoted that she was glad that he died.
Happy. And she also got called to like his maid, basically.
And she was his personal help or something.
Very good. And she said that she was glad that he was dead. Now, the reason, I'm going to save this and send it to you guys. And the reason that we're doing this, and give me 1 second so I can save it. All right. So the reason that we are doing this is because we've been talking about classifying organisms and living things based into categories, right? So what we've been doing, or what we're going to do today, is use these characteristics that we discovered about each suspect and kind of narrow down who the murderer is based on those characteristics. In science, this is called a dichotomous key. So I'm going to go over what that looks like in terms of this murder mystery, and then I'm going to show you guys what it looks like on in science. So bear with me. I'm going to send everybody. I'm going to send everybody the document. So give me 1 second.
Wait,
I don't
so
know if I can do it in here.
are we supposed to turn this into teams?
Yeah.
No, you're not turning this into teams. This is just for us to practice, and then I'm going to show you guys what it means. What it means in terms of science when we're done. Okay. I was just trying to kind of mix it up for you guys. Now, what I'm going to share my screen with you.
What's the minion thing?
I'm going to show you guys at the end, so just bear with me, okay, love?
Really? What your glasses at?
No, I ain't wearing
Put your
no
glasses on.
I ain't wearing no glasses.
Put your glasses.
All right. Can everybody see this? So what we're doing is, this is called a dichotomous key. You'll notice that every step has two options. The word die, or prefix die, means two. So I can list all of my suspects, and if the suspect has black, brown, or brownish red hair, it means I go to number 2. If the suspect has blonde or gray hair, it means that they are eliminated. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we have 5 suspects here. Based off of the first question, who can I eliminate right away?
You can
Jane the snake.
I can eliminate Jane the snake. So on my paper right here, I'm going to eliminate her. Who else can I eliminate? Is there anybody else that had blonde or gray hair?
Molly?
No.
Yeah, Molly did.
Molly had,
Molly
had brownish red hair. So we eliminated Jane the snake. Now we need to go to number 2. The suspect has financial incentive for killing the victim. Is there anybody that has no financial motives? Let's go back.
Andrew.
He had financial, he would have gained a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So he has
Yes.
financial motive. Is there anybody?
Molly Daggers.
Oh,
Jose.
Molly.
Molly.
James the Snake.
Oh
Okay.
wait, no, she's in
So
as well.
Molly would have gotten a lot of money. Jose
There was this thing had an onion in the shirt.
Jose would have gained a lot of money as well.
There was this thing that had an onion.
His hair was very short, but it was still black. But we can eliminate him because he had barely any hair, right?
Yeah.
So we can eliminate him because he had barely any hair. So do you see how I used number 1? I was able to eliminate somebody. I went to number 2. The people who are left are Molly, Angie, and Andrew. So now I take all of those guests to number 3. If the suspect has medical training, they will move on to the next round. But who can I eliminate that has no medical training?
Andrew.
Andrew
has no medical training, so I can eliminate him. Is there anybody else that has no medical training?
Angie.
Very good. So now I can go back, and here's our last step. The suspect has the ability to hold the victim. Is there anybody? Molly is mentioned.
Molly.
Very good. So what that means is that Molly is our murderer. Now, the reason that we did this is because we are practicing dichotomous keys. I'm going to show you one that we're going to use for science, and then you guys are going to do one with minions on your own. Scientists use dichotomous keys to narrow down organisms so that they can identify what kind of organism they are. So in tutoring tomorrow, live tutoring at 9 a.m., we are going to go over the minion paper. So please make arrangements to show so that we can go over it together. But really quickly, let me show you the one that we're going to do together right now. Let me see. There we go. All right, so if we take a look at this one, I have a bunch of different aliens. Let me see. All right, so I'm going to look at each one of these aliens and use each step to try to eliminate who they are. So if I look at the first one, it says, is the mouth open for the first one? Yes. So I'm going to go to number 2. Does the first one have arms?
No.
So this first one is called Alienus quadrilegicus. So down here, I would write, down here I'm going to identify it as Alienus quadrilegicus. And what I can even do is cross that one off on my list. Does that make sense, guys? So now I'm going to look at the second one. For the second one, does it have its mouth open?
No.
So what step do I go to? 4. Very good. Does it have horns? No. So what step do I go to?
5.
Very good. What does it have legs?
No.
So what is this one called?
Alienus blobicus.
Alienus
Blobicus.
blobicus. Very good. And then I can cross it off. Now I move on to the third one. The third one, is his mouth open?
No.
No. So what step do I go to?
2.
4.
I go to 4 because it's not open. Does it have horns?
No.
No, so what step do I go to?
5.
5. Does it have legs?
Yes.
Yes, so which one is this one?
Alien Fuzzicus.
Alienus Fuzzicus. Very good, guys. Do you guys kind of understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Yep.
I think that these are super fun because they're like giant puzzles. One that you guys are doing with Minions is it's essentially the same thing. So, all right, let's look at this one. Is his mouth open?
No.
So what
Oh, his
do
mouth
I go
is
to?
No.
4.
4. Does it have horns?
Yes.
Yes. What is it called?
Alienus Stripicus.
Alienus Stripicus.
Y'all sound so depressed.
This is a weird name. It's like
Yeah, I was
raining
trying to
outside.
make
So these things got weird names.
I was trying to make this all fun for y'all, dressing up and everything.
Alien strip, I guess.
All right. What about the next one? What about the next one? Is his mouth open?
Yes.
Yes. So where do I go?
2.
The number.
Number 2. Does it have arms?
Yes.
Yes.
3. Is it hairy?
No.
What is this one called?
Alienus Tritoothicus.
This one's kind of weird. Which means that our last one is what?
Alienus Hericus.
Hericus. Sounds like Harry Potter spells.
Oh my god, y'all sound
I know, yep. I'm about to make y'all do jumping jacks or something to wake up, just like we.
Yeah, yup. Did you guys not get enough sleep last night? Because apparently that's what it sounds like.
No.
I got 9 hours.
I
of
got a
sleep.
lot.
All right, guys.
4, so I really
Bringing it back. Bringing it back.
Way.
Way back. Thank you. Now remember, each of these alien twins belongs to the same genus. If you remember our guided notes, the genus is the first name in binomial nomenclature. What is the genus for this specific organism?
Alienus.
Alienus. Very good. And then, how do you think the names were chosen? What do you think we used?
Appearance.
Appearance.
Their appearance. Very good. Does everybody understand what we were doing here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. What you guys are doing for homework, and this is due on Friday, you guys will be doing the same thing, but with minions. And so you guys at the bottom, you can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and at the bottom, write identify who they are. Or you can label them up at the top by inserting a text box above their head and naming them. Or like I said, you can do it on a separate sheet of paper and you can number them 1, 2, 3, etc. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and tell me who they are. If you have any questions about that, let me know. But this is a way that scientists figure out what genus and species each organism are. I hope that you guys enjoyed our little detective mystery today. And for those of you that wore our sunglasses to get in the mood, I appreciate it. I even wore my trench coat. Gotta go all in. But tomorrow, please join me in our live tutoring session and we will go over the homework together. Until then, I miss you guys and I love you guys. Malachi, the haircut looks awesome. You're rocking it. Does anybody have anything they want to share?
Miss Girl,
Yes, love?
can we work?